Hey guys, welcome to the Roundtable. I'm Amir.
I'm Tim.
I'm Nicole.
And I'm Brian.
And today we're discussing whether or not multiplayer games have made gamers more social. And actually the way we've come to all meet each other was because of games. This is how this all started, right?
Yes.
And I vividly remember Halloween meeting you.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so this was weird. I started to talk about games, and every single time as an adult, I feel like when I talk about games, I am put into this label of maybe being immature or whatever, which is another topic we need to discuss about video games. But
is it in the list?
Yes, it is. It's,
okay.
It's in our list of topics for the Roundtable.
Just wondering.
But what I found funny was at that Halloween party, there actually were a bunch of gamers, nobody talking about games, until somehow it came up. And then I realized that, like, the moment I started talking about games, like you had come over and said, "Oh, are we talking about games?"
Yep.
And then another friend of ours, Emily, "Oh, are you talking about?" And then it became like this little gamer party in the Halloween party, like a party within a party. And that night, actually, and the reason I think this topic works, and why I wanted to bring it up, I remember back way before we had online multiplayer, back in the NES days, and I was in elementary school. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out was the big frustrating game at the time for me.
Yeah.
I remember King Hippo making me cry a lot. I was really upset. Yeah, exactly. And I remember my dad struggling really hard to get me a copy of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. And
good man.
Yeah, that was the time where, like, you couldn't get it. You know, it was you couldn't get it anywhere. But my dad managed it. I was in the car with him. We were all day hunting down Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, scored it, and then I come home and the poor guy, his son is crying a river by nightfall because he can't beat King Hippo. Now,
sad times.
The saving grace was going to school, and Nintendo Power had come out after a couple of weeks, and everybody's sitting around in the cafeteria, and one kid goes, "I got the new Nintendo Power! And it says how to beat King Hippo!" And we all sit around and we're like, "Oh, you just gotta punch him in the mouth," and then he drops his pants, punch him in the belly. Nowadays, online multiplayer, you would think it would bring a whole bunch of people together, but those kind of moments, those social moments where you get together and you try to discover something together, I don't feel like they happen quite like that. I don't feel like there's that kind of connection.
Well, there's definitely a difference between online social interaction and offline social interaction. So it depends on if the definition of social is like offline social, like, maybe sit around a table and, play some games or talk about games or something like that. Perhaps in our case, you might say that is that it did bring us together. These games, especially around this particular topic, it has brought us here to discuss it. So this is more social, even though we're sort of disconnected by this wall. What wall? It's the fourth wall. Anyway. But in any event, the connectivity of the internet. I mean, so really, we're talking about online gaming, not multiplayer, not just multiplayer, but online multiplayer.
Right, because now that we have the classification of couch multiplayer and online.
Yeah. So there's a lot more interaction between people than there used to be, simply because of the methods of communication we have available to us. I mean, forums, message boards, email, instant messaging. I mean, there's a lot more ways to reach out to people. And there's a lot more ways to find out how to beat freaking King Hippo, because there's a lot of people have had the ability to share, like, their strategies, and you have people who put together FAQs for even the most obscure games, and they'll post it online. And even if you're not directly talking to that person, you're still interacting with them in a way that wasn't really possible back in the day, unless you through like a magazine or something like that.
I think one thing about it also, we all grew up in that era with, the couch-based games. You hung out with your buddies, you played them, you had a blast. You stayed up all night playing your favorite games. It was amazing. I have very fond memories of that. I think we all do. But as the internet's really gotten into gaming and started to change the landscape of it, there's a different younger generation than us who knows only that. Now, whereas I'm not really the type of person to get on Call of Duty or something and try to talk to other people or try to actually seriously engage with somebody socially when I'm trying to play a game. I think for the younger people, the younger kids these days, I think that's probably more of a thing to them, with the games, and maybe eventually we'll see sort of a resurgence of the couch-based games coming through, but feel bad for the kids who don't really get to have that experience.
Yeah. I don't know if it's really that there isn't going to be that. It seems like right now we're kind of like slowly going back to the couch multiplayer. Like it's starting to happen.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever be dead necessarily.
Because Mario Kart 8 still has a split screen, right? They haven't got rid of that.
Surely.
I don't know, actually. I think they do.
I don't know about the new one, but I would think so, because Nintendo really caters to bringing the family all in one room together instead of branching out to the entire wide web. So.
Yeah, and Nintendo with, to a certain extent, Splatoon, it's not really clear what the multiplayer is going to be.
It looks great. It looks like a lot of fun.
Well, and so we don't know what the local multiplayer is going to be, but it's hard to, I'm not sure how you're going to play that with I don't know. It's going to be interesting without having the online component, because it's like 4-on-4, and like that's the whole premise of what they were showing. But the projects that Miyamoto's working on, like the Project Robot, and then Project
Guardian.
Is it Guardian? Anyway, those are very much built around that same sort of thing, where you have that. An experience, not so much multiplayer, so much, or at least not in the traditional sense where everybody has a controller, but that you have other people who are watching and sort of participating tangentially to with the person who actually has that gamepad. And of course, all the Mario games now are multiplayer.
Yeah.
So even 3D World was multiplayer. So
I think it's really important to avoid any sort of split screen nowadays too. Maybe in a racing game or something like that, I could play split screen with somebody on the couch, but I don't think I would be very pleased with it. A lot of the games that I like are the kind of games, you play it with a bunch of people and you're all in the same room watching the same screen the whole time, like Geometry Wars, like Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
And, having everybody in the room in a very competitive game like that really it makes it a lot more fun. You're playing with your friends.
Yeah, right.
And you can hear their reactions and their little grunts and sighs or what have you. And that's just not something that you can really capture if you try and do it online.
There was something like when we were playing Geometry Wars, when the four of us were playing, there were certain things that if we had played online, we wouldn't have seen. We wouldn't have seen that tension that we later laughed at, where the moment a round would start, everybody sits up. You wouldn't see that if you were online, and that right there would cause like some laughter. We'd all look back and forth.
That's something I had never really thought about, but that's a really good point.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain interactions that are lost, and I still remember. Anybody remember a game Mag that Sony was trying to push? That it was like this big, massive action game.
Yeah.
I didn't know it stood for that when I bought the game, and then I bought the game, and I was like, oh my god, did it really stand?
It's okay.
I thought it was going to be great because it wasn't just that, oh my god, now we're going to have 256 people in a multiplayer game. But they actually split it up into platoons of 8. And in my head, I was like, well, now it's co-op between these 8 people. So it's going to be a lot more intimate. We have to work together. It turned out not to be that way. But, I mean, the thing is that at one point with Mag, I remember I was I was just running to just gun down somebody, and I noticed that there were 2 people not even playing the game. They were just standing there in a corner talking to each other. Because that's what they wanted to do. They were just hanging out, and they wanted to talk to each other, and that's great. Go on fucking Skype. But that's the thing. Like now, it's instead, if they were on the same couch and they were hanging out with a whole bunch of their buddies, then it would be different. It would be pause the game, let's just hang out, have a couple of drinks, eat some cake, whatever, and not play. And just pause it, and then, hey, we're ready to play the next round, let's go and play. But these guys felt like they were forced to move away from the game, away from the action, abandon their teammates, just to have a conversation.
That's a lot more exciting environment for a conversation than Skype.
Well,
to be honest. I mean, come on.
It is.
That's just like, hey, let's hop into Mag. I want to talk to you about geometry. No, not Geometry Wars, like geometry. Not sure what the answers to 17 and 22 are.
I just feel like there's an intimacy that's lost there. That you can't just hang out with your friends and have a good time. And the other thing is that online multiplayer. I mean, now we're starting to see a lot more co-op.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah,
I'm excited
really cool.
about that.
Yeah.
But another thing that kind of bugged me about online multiplayer is that most of it was competitive.
Yeah.
The problem with competitive is that you're online, you don't know who you're going to get, and typically you're going to get somebody who has way more time to play this game than you do.
Yeah.
So I looked at it as like the equivalent to the Japanese kid that I avoided a Street Fighter arcade and say, oh no, I'm not putting my quarter in there because that's I'm losing my quarter in 5 minutes to that kid.
Yeah.
So then it becomes kind of frustrating. There is no. I think the most intimate experience that I had online where I met somebody online in a competitive game was, I got a message that said, you suck. That was about the extent of our conversation after a game.
Mm. Well, there's another video game genre we haven't really touched on, but I think it's sort of begging to be discussed is, MMOs. With the internet coming around, and I remember the first MMO I played, it wasn't EverQuest, it was EverQuest Online Adventures. I had to buy a separate modem for my PlayStation 2, plug it in through the dial-up, wait for my mom to get off the phone.
Right.
And then sit there and try to play for as long as you can without getting kicked off. But I had a cousin who played it with me. Actually, I had two cousins and then a neighbor. And it was just a lot of fun, and because I could still communicate with them outside of the game.
Right.
And kind of bring that whole aspect into it. It's something that's sort of the other side of the spectrum in terms of couch-based multiplayer versus online gaming. So you definitely want both. I think a lot of the problem comes when the developers try to find some sort of middle ground, and it gets kind of funky and gray.
Yeah.
There is the fact that there are a lot of people on this planet, and there are a lot of like-minded people who don't live right next to you or within any sort of nearby radius, and this connectivity allows you to be social and socialize and talk with these people where you otherwise would never be able to interact with them. Because of the distances in between, you might never even meet these people.
Yeah.
There have been a number of studies, actually, the number of studies that have been done, particularly around MMORPGs, surprised me. If you do a Google search for like MMORPG study or online gaming effect on social behavior or something like that, you can find all kinds of different things, and it's not all just about well, now, are adolescents made more aggressive by playing video games? It's not all about that. It's about what are the effects, what effects, and are they positive, are they negative, and how do they affect these people's social interactions? So, for instance, there was one study was done in China, where they looked at about 200 or 300 MMORPG players, and they looked at several offline societal aspects. They looked at how they interacted inside the game, and then how that affected their interactions outside the game. And about the only thing that this particular study found for these Chinese gamers was that their sort of civil engagement increased as a result of their online interaction. So their interest in like the systems that were going on around them seemed to be a correlation between playing online and that level of engagement. But it wasn't necessarily because they did a whole lot within those systems on those games, for example.
It's interesting.
So, I mean, there's a lot of really interesting studies that I kind of came across, and I do want to mention there's a website, The Psychology of Video Games, which I didn't know existed. That is worth a look. There's some it's psychologyofgames.com,
And you're welcome, psychologyofgames.com.
I think it's worth a look because it really goes a little bit deeper into the topics, into some interesting topics than I think than most of the news sites really do.
Cool.
So I thought I'd just kind of mention that because there was one article about the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is people who think they're pretty good, like you go through the single-player campaign, right? You go through the single-player campaign, you're just like, I'm going to hop into multiplayer. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I just wiped this out on crushing. I got this.
That's the Tim Mill effect, is what.
And you hop into an online game and you get murdered. You have a negative, kill death ratio, and you're just like, what just happened? And it's the people who killed you who are just like who can see the imperfections in it, like the people who have more time to play.
Right.
So there is that effect of the people who aren't as good at it don't realize how bad they are, and the people who are really good at it think they're absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Well, you just described exactly my experience with Street Fighter 4.
Exactly my experience too. With everything.
Yeah.
With anything I play.
And I played that online on the PlayStation 3 when it came out, and I was stoked. I loved it. Mm-hmm. Mostly against Japanese people. I won one match. One match out of a good 40 to 50 matches. Yeah, that's true.
Got to watch me stick your quarter.
Man, that's maddening. It's so frustrating. It's to the T how we described it. Hey, I'm getting pretty good at this game. I haven't lost in a long time. Let's see what I got here.
No. Crushed in 2 seconds. Yeah, and that's the thing. But I had the same experience with Battlefield 2 back in the day. I played it online, but I think the key to enjoying the games is finding and making that connection with somebody. Yep. And because you mentioned it was what your cousin or
it was my cousin.
That and it's because you have that other person sort of tethering you to the bowling. No,
we can't have conversations before we start the show.
Through the experience, to that experience, I think really, and that I guess because you do have that connection with other people, but I mean these online games do generate connections with other human beings that turn into offline relationships. Some of them, even
that's important too because this particular cousin was considerably older than me, and when you're a little younger, the age difference matters a lot more. So I never really talked to him, outside of just family things. But man, as soon as I hailed him on EverQuest, it was like, oh man, how's it going? Join the guild. Mm-hmm. Let me show you the ropes. And it was nice. Let me, power level you.
I think it helps, like you were saying, both of you guys, that if you know people outside of the game, in the game, it helps to really socially connect you to not just those people in the game, but to be more willing to socialize with other people. Because you've got kind of a buddy to give you that kind of comfort level. Like, when I play WoW, I don't talk to anybody. But if I play with my boyfriend, we'll go out and we'll meet other people and invite them into our group, and we'll go out. So I'm much more likely to meet people in there that way. Otherwise, I don't really want to talk to anybody.
Exactly.
I'm an anti-social gamer. So.
Oh yeah. I'm
also,
the same way.
Also thought it was interesting. I saw that cousin very recently. He just moved up to Chicago, just before Watch Dogs came out. And we were talking about EverQuest actually, and one of the people that they, I guess, founded the guild in there with, he actually met up with. I forget exactly what it is he does, but works with this guy professionally and brought him business and purposefully sought him out. And I'm pretty sure they at least were on opposite ends of the United States. So
that's pretty cool.
I mean,
that's pretty cool. One of the things that I thought was cool because I have the same issue. If I'm going to play an online multiplayer game, I'm also the type that I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to meet anybody. I'm there to play the game. Mm-hmm. And it kills the joy of it because everybody else, is kind of socializing. I'm like, well, I don't even fit in this group. I don't know who to talk to. I don't want to talk to anybody. Like, it just feels like nobody is really there's no. I keep going back to that word, but that's really it. There's no intimacy there. If I knew somebody in person in real life, and we enjoyed gaming together. And then now, I'm separated from a lot of my friends in New York because I moved in from New York. So a lot of my friends in New York, It'll be like, hey, what are you doing tonight? Are you gaming? Yeah, all right, cool. Let's start a party on the PS4, and we'll take a tour of a couple of multiplayer games, and then we have fun that way, and that bridges that gap. But if I am online and it's just a stranger in a session, usually it's going to be some kind of action game, and you're really busy. So there is no interacting there. It's just like frantically shooting shit.
Yeah.
Journey is brilliant, but that actually stops you from interacting completely, and then you just see the name in the list at the end. All the names of the people that you've interacted with in the game, it'll just tell you at the end. But while you're actually playing and there's other people there, I remember at first when I played Journey, I was like, is that another person? Or is that AI?
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing as with Watch Dogs, how another player will kind of just drop in on your game. And I had the same moment. It's like, wait a minute, like is this an NPC?
But as far as the social aspect, where you're connecting with them beyond that, sure. But Journey is, in some ways that sort of perfect. Well, I shouldn't say perfect, but it's not intrusive multiplayer.
Right.
It's just because really all you can do is either just wander around, or you can progress. And if you progress, you're going to help whoever happens to be in that part of the game at that particular time.
Yeah.
So it has that cooperative element, and nary a word is spoken.
Yeah.
Which is
Right.
nice.
Yeah.
It's so much more peaceful. What I did like, the concept that I did like, and it's a shame that it didn't work out, and everybody will probably roll their eyes when I say this, but PlayStation Home. PlayStation Home.
I had a feeling this one was coming.
Yeah. PlayStation Home was brilliant in that regard because a lot of people
Couldn't type with a controller. Sorry.
That was my problem. I didn't have a keyboard for it.
Sorry.
Right, yeah. Okay, so it required peripherals, but for those who did have the peripherals, it was amazing. They finally added voice chat later on, so you can have like group voice chats or whatever, so that worked. The thing about PlayStation Home is that marketing was junk. Development was very slow, probably had an extremely small team based on... And you could tell that by how much content was coming in from the core team, because most of it was from third parties.
I heard the development team was a home-based business. Sorry.
That took a while.
My apologies, Internet. Okay, continue.
But the cool thing about it was it had something called game launching, universal game launching, which was...
Eventually it was universal, right? It didn't have it initially.
It didn't have it at launch,
Right.
but it didn't take long for them to have game launching. I think only a year later universal game launching came on.
Okay.
Now, what game launching was before the universal part, game launching was if the game was set up to synchronize with home and work with home. You just have to have the disc, or if it's a PSN title, it's already there in your hard drive, so you're good. You would be able to go through the menus and set up a session, and then the game would start right there in that session. And all people would have to do is you would set it up, and then it would say, okay, this person wants to play Warhawk, so you would have Warhawk above, and it would say how many players, and then you just have to walk up to the person and press X. And then once that person has enough players and they're ready to start that session, he presses X, and then Warhawk just boots up, and no menus, it goes straight into that session. You play the game, you zoom back out of that session, and you're back in PlayStation Home. So now you have that intimacy back. Like now you're actually having conversations with people while you're waiting for people to join the session. And it's not a lobby. There's an avatar there who's doing disco dancing or whatever. But you guys are actually like interacting with each other and developing friendships. So before I even got into game launching, because it wasn't there yet, my experience with PlayStation Home was I really gave it my best shot because I was excited for it for a year because it was delayed a year.
Yeah.
And when it came out, I really didn't know what to do. It had very little spaces. It had almost nothing, to like dress your avatar or whatever. It had nothing. So all I did was I remember I went to the Uncharted bar, and I just sat there and just observed and waited for interactions to happen. And it was actually like 3 days of just watching people or whatever. Like every time I had a game session, I had nothing to do. I would just sit down and I would just watch people interact, and then it just... Every once in a while, somebody would sit down at my table and we would have a short conversation. But at one point, there was this one person where we clicked and we really got along until this day. That was 2008. Until this day, we still send messages back and forth. We're great friends.
Yeah.
And that spawned filling up my friend list. Like, I went from, not having any virtual friends, and my friend list was only real friends, to going from those 5 people who had PS3s, because everybody was on Xbox Live at the time. All of a sudden, like, was hitting the cap of 100 friends.
Right.
All intimate, all of us actually having these bonds, and like when we would message each other, it wouldn't just be that random, invite. It would be, hey, what are you doing tonight? You want to play this game? And we would actually have back and forth conversations. And I think that was a cool way to try to make it a little bit more intimate and have online multiplayer work, but I guess it wasn't marketed well, and people just didn't get it because, it's the internet, so it's mostly trolls and people like, crouching and trying to, for some reason, put their faces in your crotch all the time. But yeah, aside from home, I never had an experience in online multiplayer really that compared to hanging out with my friends on a couch.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about home pretty recently, and I completely missed the point of it apparently. And you basically describing to me what you just now described. Really made me want to go back and try it and sort of get into that sort of socially engaging side of it.
I did actually. I didn't mention that. Also, part of home was that Warhawk thing. I skipped over that, but Warhawk actually had a space in PlayStation Home later on that they called like a sand table, I think. But it was a table, and you actually had like figurines on that table where you can, kind of make maneuvers and do strategies for Warhawk. So if you hung out with your friends in this Warhawk space, you would actually go to the table, set up a game launch, and just the main person would press X, and you say, okay, well, now when we fight these guys, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that.
That's smart.
And you just move all of these things over, and they're like, okay, everybody ready? Ready. And then you press X, you launch, and then boom, you execute your strategy, you see if you win the round, you don't win the round, whatever, you come right back to that space, and then you set up your next session.
That's really
It's
cool.
like a digital tabletop game?
Yeah,
That's
it was just
awesome.
well,
cool.
you would be in this virtual space that would mimic the Warhawk world, like you were like in this military base or whatever, and it would have these tables in the middle of the room, and you can a whole bunch of people could just stand around the table, and they can control like these little figurines on the table.
That's
and
amazing.
develop
That's
those
a lot
rules.
cheaper.
And it was so. Here's what's funny: Warhawk was popular at the time, but the space was not. And eventually, they just got rid of the space.
Yeah.
Because nobody was going
marketing.
there.
It's like you said,
Yeah.
nobody knew
You know,
about it.
you just didn't know.
If I had
Yeah.
known.
The biggest complaint on PlayStation Home 2 was there's nothing to do. So that was the weird part, because I felt like this is exactly what I need so that I will want to do things with my video games with other people. But most people that came in there were like, this is stupid, there's nothing to do. Like, they were expecting it to be a game.
Either that or they tried to bowl like me and just literally could never get a single game of bowling done.
No, that was pretty bad. Yeah, bowling. But the bowling was cool when you got to do it.
I wouldn't know.
But yeah,
It sounds an awful like a lot of MMORPGs, like as far as, well, I mean, as opposed to launching a game, you do have a lot of these, guilds or whatever, factions, who, congregate together, and they may, just, shoot the breeze for however long, and there is disco dancing. Just about every MMORPG has a little.
so maybe that's what I'm
button.
missing from the MMO thing, is because
Yeah.
I never got into anything where it was.
You didn't know they had dancing?
Well, no, I mean they had dancing. They all had dancing, oddly enough. But
Yeah. So
I never found anything where you just hung out and just chilled and talked and got to know each other.
that's
and
why
then-
there's so many hub
Yeah.
worlds. There's always
Yeah.
they're built around the sort of like hub worlds, or those safe places where you go and buy armor and all that kind of stuff. But
Like Destiny.
and that's where you congregate, and you go into the little chat, and you have that little log, and you try to connect with people, and it's just like, hey, who's up for a level 50 raid, or whatever, and then then you go out and you go do it and you go play.
Yeah.
So that type of interaction, I think, happens more so without the egregious loading times that was endemic of the PlayStation.
So maybe it's just the
Every
environment
aspect
in
of
my
it,
adult life. But do you guys feel like you have difficulty finding people to talk about games with in the real world outside of the gaming world?
Yeah, until there were these three folks I met recently who wanted to talk about games.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like when we were at the Halloween party, that was my first time talking about video games and finding somebody who's like came over and wanted to talk about video games, and we had that group. Like, for me, besides that scene when I was in school and that kid comes up with a Nintendo Power, it was as I got older, it became less and less that like I could talk about games without feeling like I was being judged. And then to find people my age, all of a sudden, like we go into the office, you're wearing a Super Mario 3 shirt. Your office is painted like Zelda.
It's Forest Temple.
Awesome. That's awesome.
And then you come up like and I'm just like, dude, this is where I'm supposed. I'm so glad I moved.
Yeah.
And I came from a place where like my friend, who you would think doesn't care what anybody thinks of him, but when it comes to games, his thing is, after I beat a game, I sell it because I don't want to keep it in my house. I don't want people to know.
That makes me so sad.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, that's what it is. We get adult gamers get judged. So it kind of sucks. I don't care. I'm loud and proud. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, no, I don't.
The interesting. Go ahead. I insist.
I was gonna say, I guess it kind of depends. Like, I feel like once you start meeting fellow adult gamers, you just tend to like meet a ton of them.
Yeah.
And I guess I've been really lucky because I always end up working in places where everyone's like, I worked at GameStop and then Best Buy and stuff, so that naturally draws. But I got really lucky with where we work too. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, the first time I heard about you was from our mutual friend Dale, and I think we were at a Chili's or something like that. And he was talking about you for some reason, I don't remember why, but he mentioned the name Cyber Ocelot. And I said, man, that's cool. It sounds like Metal Gear Solid. He said, that's what it's from.
Which is funny because he doesn't play games.
I know. But he said, Google it. So I Googled you, I guess, and I don't know. I was like, man, I got to talk to this guy about some Metal Gear Solid. That was the first thing I came over and said to you, basically, too. It was like, so you're Amir? Cyber Ocelot, is that you?
Oh,
awesome.
Yeah,
remember?
That's right. That is funny. Oh, man. God, that name took forever to figure out. Oh, dog. Well, here we go. Another week, another dog accident. I'll be right back.
Another what? Another what accident?
Well, not that kind of accident.
Yeah, that's
just wrapped in the power cord.
Yeah.
Oh, puppy, why?
Yeah. Yeah, it's tragic. It's tragic. I'm just gonna sit here and just and we're back.
We're back.
I almost didn't want to come back.
We should have a little intermission screen, man.
No.
Yeah.
That would be fun. We should do it.
No.
They do that for some like podcasts.
We should
I think
do
I was
it.
listening to Giant Bombcast the other day, and they seem to have like these separations like 4 times in their show.
Yeah.
Nintendo Voice Chat has an intermission.
Oh yeah. Nintendo.
They play a little song. It's IGN's version of IGN's Nintendo podcast, basically.
Yeah.
They have a Nintendo podcast.
Yeah. They have
Add
that.
that to my queue.
You should.
Yeah.
They talk about the E3 stuff. It's pretty good. I was
Not
actually
to go
just listening to
completely
it the other
off
day.
topic, but
Yeah.
I feel like an old man because I'm always listening to the podcast now. Because I just love them.
Yeah.
But I feel like
Oh,
one of
I'm
those old
exactly the
men,
same
with
way.
the shortwave radios. It's like I'll have my cell phone in my pocket and like Greg Miller is like talking out of my balls. What's going on?
Did you hear that? Game over, Greggy.
There you go.
Talking out of his balls.
Life aspiration.
We're gonna
Hashtag talking out of his balls. There you go.
Oh man.
Yeah, fantastic.
We're gonna have to reach out to him now.
Yeah.
Reach out and anyway.
Walk into that one.
Well, yeah.
Well, let's try this question on for size then.
All right.
What would you say was there's that word again. I just can't think of a better word. What was your most intimate experience with other players in online multiplayer that you say would be comparable? Like, what game have you played where you say would be comparable to playing on a couch with friends?
Well, when you said online, before that I was going to say hot coffee, but anyway. No, let's say, so online, what was your question again?
Am I going to have to repeat it?
No. Well, it's the most intimate moment. That's the thing. It's basically the most sort of the most intimate moment that I've had online. This is getting weird in my head very, very quickly. Oh no! But really, I haven't had that experience where I've connected with somebody who I've only ever met online.
Okay.
So it's pretty much just been either playing multiplayer, like local multiplayer with my wife, in something like Civilization or Star Trek: Birth of the Federation, 1999, woohoo, or with my brother, like in Battlefield or Call of Duty or Command and Conquer, something like that.
Have you read anything like that? Like we felt connected?
Well, my experience with online multiplayer is extremely limited in the more modern sense. I think the last time that I really actively did multiplayer any games and actually met people that I regularly stayed in touch with was like back during the Telnet-based games that are all text-based, like
Mud.
Mud and
Muds.
Mucks and stuff. Like that's the last time that I really like had I felt like I had quality interactions with online gaming, because you're because it's all like description and all. You are the characters. Mm-hmm. You build the games with these people. You describe everything. You program it, and then you play it. Yeah. So you really kind of.
Oh, these were ones that like you. I thought they were just text-based games. So you've actually built these together.
I did eventually. Like I used to. Like I started off playing ones that other people had built, and then as people started getting more comfortable with the games and learning the language, we started making some. And like
that's really cool.
Scripting and stuff. It was really cool because you got to basically build your world and then play in it. And so it became much more dependent like on each other, and you were the characters. There were no real NPCs. So that I felt was like the good type of involvement that I wanted, not just like the 99% of the people you meet online it feels are going to be just this much depth, and you really don't ever want to talk to them again most of the time because they're just swearing at you the whole time. So that's kind of my limit on that. I'm not really qualified on that.
What about you, Tim? Any?
I've been trying to think of something other than what I talked about a minute ago, and I guess I don't know if I understood the question 100% correctly. But like, I'm gonna use my answer from earlier again, which was EverQuest Online Adventures, and even though I have played. Not like if you played that game or you know anything about it, not a very good overall MMO. A lot of problems with it. Mm-hmm. But I've played quite a few other MMOs. Really, for the longest time, thought, "Hey, this is my genre of game. This is what I want to play." But for instance, like World of Warcraft, I started trying to play that, and I found myself basically just playing solo. And going through as far in the game as I possibly could without trying to do that. But you were talking about like the hub cities or whatever, where you kind of go and you look for groups and everything like that. I really even just miss like the text, like the chat for whatever area that you're in. Just the ridiculous stuff that people will say. People will congregate around just one person disco dancing. I don't know why.
Yeah. There it is again.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's ubiquitous.
That's PlayStation.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Disco lives online. MMORPGs.
I mean, even with because
you would think that they would finally just make a disco MMO where everybody just goes to a disco and dances around people.
Sega, you can reboot Space Channel 5 as an MMORPG.
I hope not.
So basically,
I love that. I hope not.
So basically, the answer, I think, from what I understand, is no. I mean, from what I understand from all of you, the answer is no, unless you've known that person in real life.
Yeah,
exactly. You haven't gotten a deep experience similar to couch multiplayer.
I'm open to it, and I would really like it, but it's really hard to get past that barrier of, hello, strange random person I know nothing about. You know,
Yeah.
I don't really want to open up to you. I don't really want to, unless you know you have that.
And then I'm not going to see you again either.
Exactly.
So we're never going to develop that relationship.
What
And
server do you
that's
play
where-
on? Yeah.
And so that's where the question is. If that's the case, and we're never really developing these friendships, it's just, fuck you, you suck, you know, whatever, or let me dance disco on your face. If that's all that's happening.
Teabag disco, yeah.
Teabag disco.
Teabag disco
Patent that.
intimate
We're
online
making
moments.
an indie game.
Hashtag Teabag disco.
But if that's not happening, so then maybe maybe we're not becoming more social with online connectivity. Maybe we're actually, you know, maybe it's just the same as single player. We just see other people there as a nuisance, or in most cases as a nuisance.
It's kind of the truth.
Or just you know, AI that's either awesome or not awesome. But I know that I did the first look alpha on Destiny.
Yeah.
And my first experience, you know, they just kind of
Can
throw
you
into
talk
it.
about this? Is it okay to talk about?
Yeah.
There's the embargo.
All right.
Yeah, there's no embargo for
Okay.
the first look alpha.
I just
It's
checked it.
actually all over YouTube, so people can see it.
Okay.
But they kind of throw you into it, and there's no tutorial at
Okay.
all. It just throw you into the world. This is what you're doing. Okay. And when they threw me in, I spawned with 2 other people, and I'm immediately on a mission. So I look at 2 other people. They look at me. I have a headset on. I'm ready. I'm ready to be social.
Yeah.
For whatever reason that day. I guess maybe I drank 1 extra beer, or 2 extra sips.
Liquid
of a beer.
courage.
You know, and I have my headset on. I'm ready to go. I'm trying to talk, and I see the little speaker that says that my mic is working. It hears me, but they don't hear me. Okay?
They don't hear you, or they're not
They
responding.
don't hear me. They're not responding. I don't know what the hell's going on. All I know is that we started the mission, and everybody is like going their separate ways.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it was like, well, the whole purpose of this game is that it's multiplayer and it's
Exactly.
co-op, and we're all on the same mission. And then I'm like, okay, fine. So I remembered from some of the gameplay trailers or whatever, there are like these they're these big bosses. You know, they're like robots or whatever. So they drop these kind of, I don't know how to describe it. They're just these, think of them as bosses in the middle of the world, you know. So I go up to this thing and I trigger the event. I think they call them some kind of event. And when you trigger it, there's like a countdown timer that displays for everybody on the map that says, this is going down.
Yeah.
Okay. That counter reached 0. Nobody showed up.
Yeah.
Nobody was even there.
Mm-hmm.
I was just there all by myself getting destroyed. And I was
Gotcha.
like, well, okay.
You have a very similar thing in Final Fantasy XIV, I noticed, too. It's almost to the T. It's not an instance. There was a word for it, but...
And I wish I could explain it better, but
Yeah.
I only played it for a few hours. I didn't know that we only had the weekend, so I only played it for a few hours and said I'll go back to it on Tuesday, which is supposed to be after the show tonight. But the alpha's over. And I was supposed to meet with my real-world friend because I said, hey, I can't talk to anybody, so let's figure this out together. But yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, I mean, I
Sure.
was just basically agreeing with you. I mean, I've had a lot of the same sort of moments. But those types of fights are fights that the game forces you to have somebody on your team to be able to win. And nobody goes to them. Nobody goes to them. It's a big, huge icon on the map. You get really good experience for doing it, but nobody really does it. Which is, you know, you look at how much money, I guess, Activision, Bungie, whatever, the budget for Destiny, that's really, really high. And they're really having to bank a lot on people really getting into those social interactions. And I don't know why they think it's really going to work out all that well. I mean,
I'm sure it's also
I'm leery
because
about
it's
it.
an alpha, which, I mean, really, I don't know why they call it alpha. It should technically be beta. But,
Programmer
You wanna get
Amir says,
technical, yeah.
"Oh no, it's this
dude,
is,
alpha,
it's really
it's not in an
innovative.
alpha stage. If you play Destiny, you would know that is not alpha.
Maybe it is an alpha.
Because it's for testing the servers.
Uh huh.
So, I mean,
So
at that
it's
point, if you've got a game...
Alpha testing. Well, but we don't know how baked the elements are in that. We don't even know if what the part of the game that you played is going to be in the actual game.
I'm sure it will.
Maybe it's an unlockable mode. Maybe
I
it's
mean,
alpha
it's got
mode.
voice acting
Ooh.
and everything. It's
Maybe
way,
it's alpha's
it's way too
mode.
complete to
Everybody
not
has
be in the
powers.
game. It's way too complete to not be in the game.
Right.
Have you played the first alpha?
The what? No, I don't have a PlayStation 4, so no.
Oh, right.
Right, yeah.
Hi,
I'm Amir.
I forgot. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, he's got that budget.
Oh, yeah. You got to tell the end of that like Tyson Punch-Out story one of these days. Anyway, to the internet.
What the Rad Racer part?
Yeah, one of these days. But but just because we're not having those experiences doesn't mean that nobody is. And obviously, there's a lot of people playing online. There's a lot of money being made. I mean, you look at Blizzard, Activision Blizzard, and you see the amount of money that they're making. There are MMORPGs and other online games popping up out the wazoo, and they're making a lot of money. But I point you to a study by Cole and Griffiths from 2007 that show that even in 2007,
everybody watching is probably like, why the fuck did he just pull out a yardstick?
Because of Facebook, that's why.
That's right. Because on Facebook, a viewer said,
"Yep,
did this dude Brian ever get off his devices?"
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
pulling up
And I
academic
promised that I would bring a
articles.
yardstick to slap his hand.
Yes. And
But,
I said I would love to see him try.
Right. but now your hands are under the table.
I don't have a phone. I have a tablet.
Booyah!
Anyway, what they
Get you after the show.
a sample consisting of 912 MMORPG players. What the study showed. I'm not.
I want to know.
Not gonna go
I want
there.
to know.
The study showed that MMORPGs can be extremely social games, go figure, with high percentages of gamers making lifelong friends and partners.
Have you ever made one?
It was concluded, well, a high percentage, so I mean
Okay.
there's going to be a minority. It was concluded that virtual gaming may allow players to express themselves in ways they may not feel comfortable doing in real life because of their appearance, gender, sexuality, and or age. And they offer a place where teamwork, encouragement, and fun can be experienced. So the potential is there, but it's up to the player to,
Pursue.
to pursue all of those elements of it. I mean, it's just like PlayStation Home. There was a lot of potential that a lot of gamers didn't pursue. So, part of that's on the developer part of that's on the awareness part, but part of it is the agency of the actual player to spend 3 days in a bar.
So, to throw in an analogy there.
And wait for something
PlayStation
to
Home,
happen.
I felt, was more like a 100,000 person bar.
Uh-huh.
Nothing is going on in this bar except for everybody's drinking, and the only thing they have to do is to interact with each other when everybody else is busy. If the bartender's busy, or whatever, the only choice you have is to interact with each other. Nothing else is going on. Where I see as these online games, online multiplayer games, the analogy would be millions of people at a concert. You're all kind of doing that same thing. You're all focused on the concert, and you're not focused on interacting with each other. So you're not developing those relationships with each other. You're developing the relationship with the game, and everybody else is like kind of on the side. And that's what makes it so that when you're playing that game and you're trying to kill this boss and other people are supposed to be helping you and they screw up, that the only interaction is, you fucked up or whatever, or they just don't care and everybody laughs, or somebody, says something derogatory to the next one. It's just short sound bites.
Yeah.
That never happened in couch gaming.
Of course it did, but when a couch game was over, you guys were still on the couch. And so when the game was over, you're back to that bar. You're now interacting with each other. And when you're interacting with each other, you're talking about that game, how you did in that game. You're making jokes about somebody who, did poorly. You guys were all laughing at me, that Geometry Wars, that I only scored 1 point per round.
It was your remarks that made it so funny.
But but that's the point. That's the interaction. We talked about it afterwards.
Yeah.
There was even that point of where like I felt deflated, and I felt like some of you felt that. And like at one point, Chris came up and he was like, "No, dude, that's how it was when I first started playing. That's how much those were like pretty much my."
I really wanted you to love that game.
Yeah,
we were defending it.
Yeah, but I mean, right there, that's not going to happen in an online multiplayer game because we're going to 115 because that's where we started was 15. We're looking at the counter, but that's the whole thing. If you finish an online multiplayer game, the session's over. Everybody's gone.
You'll never probably see those people again.
Yeah.
And the PlayStation's, like I know PlayStation 3 has this feature where you can see like recently played with if you go through the friends list, and then you could see like all the people that you recently played with.
Yeah.
But you're not going to remember all those names. You know, it's like you're not going to remember who was who or what.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any intimacy there. So, I mean, I don't see it making gamers more social.
Well, it's a big
maybe the
obstacle.
word is wrong. Like maybe it's not. Does it make gamers more social?
But more depth.
Yeah, but does it help? Does it help gamers develop relationships? I think that's what I was going for. Developing relationships with each other and friendships. I don't think that online multiplayer. I think it has the potential to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think because it's either competitive or the co-op is so massive that you're not really working together, that I don't think it allows us to develop the same kind of friendships and the same kind of relationships that we would on a couch if you were going with a friend to his friend's house.
Yeah.
And now you become part of that friend circle. And then, and then eventually that kind of like expands into people going into different friend circles to play certain games and just have fun with each other, and they hang out outside of a game, and do things together outside of that. I don't think online multiplayer really allows us to have that. Do you?
Well, not if you're 800 miles away.
Well, no, but I mean, like, even,
But if
we have features inside the consoles to take it outside of the game.
Uh-huh.
The online multiplayer games don't even nudge us in that direction. Like, if I'm playing with somebody online and we have, a good session, I had fun in that game, there's just so many things going on, and there was no real moment in that game for us to interact, to get to know each other, to see if we're even like-minded, because the only thing we know is that we're playing the same game.
Right.
For us to go after that session and talk to each other in a party chat on an Xbox 360 or a PS4.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing that makes that happen except for, like I said, you'll get the message that says, you suck. And that's pretty much the only incentive somebody has. Or they might send you, GG? I think I've gotten GG a couple of times.
Yeah.
Or somebody bitching and saying, let's do that again because you shouldn't have won that because, it's either whiners or complaints or,
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it's just like if you play online, if you play that type of multiplayer for an extended period of time, like if you put as much time into that as you put into like a standalone Final Fantasy game, you do start developing. You remember names, like you remember people who you play against and who are good at the game, or who you have a good experience with, or who kills you every single freaking time. And you start recognizing those those names. Now, whether or not you develop any sort of, you're right. There aren't really a whole lot of tools built into the game to promote any sort of camaraderie,
right.
I guess, because of the propensity for gamers to automatically go to the trash talking. Because if you give a lot of those interactivity tools, it seems to devolve very quickly.
Yeah.
And so you have to walk that balance as a developer of just like, well, we want to make this as interactive as possible, but we also don't want people to be turned off because it's nothing but people saying, you suck and all that kind of stuff. But these communities are, and I say these are communities, because even if you hate COD, even if you hate Battlefield, even if you hate Titanfall, you have to recognize that there are...
You're talking about the fish. I was like, COD? What?
Aww.
Sorry.
You're a part of the community that just hates fish.
Yeah.
Together.
I do. I do. All except for salmon.
First-person fish shooters.
Starring James Pond.
James Pond. Oh, now there's a reference. My goodness, there's a reference. But
Salmon Simulator.
Salmon Simulator.
Yeah.
That's next from the creators of Goat Simulator. Salmon Simulator. All it is you're jumping upstream.
Try to go upstream.
That's it.
Then a grizzly bear grabs you.
Yeah, grizzly bear, or you end up in a can on a store shelf, and it's just camera's just on this can. People just walking by. Salmon Simulator. coming 2015. Anyway,
to Wii U,
just like everything else worth talking about. But that's the thing, is like these are communities of people, and they do return, and there are people who are making these like relationships, and there's people who are having experiences that they would not be having if we were still only couch multiplayer.
Yeah.
And I mean that, so it, again, depending on the definition of social, are they making, this study says, yeah, they're making long-term relationships. Have we made any long-term relationships? No. But that doesn't mean that it can't happen. It doesn't mean that it's not happening. It doesn't mean that there aren't games out there that are doing it. But there could be more tools. Well, actually, most of these games are filled with way too many tools. But there could be more interactivity, like that carry the experience to sort of a quote-unquote offline mode, where it's easy to transition into the...
Yeah. I think PlayStation Home didn't work, but I think one of the things... I mean, I think the concept itself was cool.
Yeah. We know Amir.
But I know. But if we look at other games that previously they had these text-based lobbies, and that kind of went away because now it all became automated. I think it would be cool if certain games just created their own kind of PlayStation Home where like your character was just not in the game. Like just give us a lobby where we could just stand there and talk to each other and get to know each other before session starts, instead of just a menu, where everybody just presses X and you just go.
Yeah.
But just give us like a moment where everybody just stands around and talks to each other and be like, yo, are we ready? Or whatever.
Yeah.
Just something to like say, hey, are we
strategize,
ready?
make a plan. What were you talking about? The sand table thing?
Yeah,
whatever.
for Warhawk.
Only
like,
sane people
like that,
use it.
where people can hang out, I think that would be really cool. I think that would help to at least let us get a little bit of time to get to know each other and see if there's things we have in common outside of that game, outside of whether we're good or we suck or,
that's the thing, and that's why they're reticent to do it, I think, is because if they let you get outside the game, you might not come back.
But you're in the game in its lobby.
Well, yeah, I know, but you're not you're risking launching another game instead.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You're risking leaving that.
I don't think so.
It takes attention away from the main event.
Yeah.
Basically.
I believe it takes the attention away short term from that main event right there. If you get into a conversation and end up talking for an hour or two, you're not going to go into that game. But because you've developed that relationship and you all have that game in common, you're all going to play that game for a very long time now, because that's where you guys met. That feels like home to you. No pun intended. But that's what that's basically what it feels like.
Yeah.
That's very saccharine of you, I have to say. that's very, very just sappy, and it's like home. Titanfall's like home. It's you do have a soft spot for it.
No. This is from somebody who doesn't use PlayStation Home. From somebody who does, and by the way, that was not supposed to be a pun, and I was not actually referencing PlayStation Home. But I'm saying that people that go on PlayStation Home go on PlayStation Home specifically to find their friends, and they get so upset if they don't have access, because it feels like home to them. It feels like that's their connection to their friends. It's really intimate, very intimate friendships.
Right.
In home. And I have 100 friends. My friends in PlayStation Home outnumber my real world friends, and the relationships there are they feel just as intimate, and we keep in touch just as much as me calling somebody on the phone.
Right.
I think if that was in a video game, I don't think that a specific video game, like let's say Call of Duty, had a lobby where everybody could just stand around and just get to know each other, before they start a session for a couple of minutes. That it would stop them from playing the game long term. If anything, I think that would make them want to play that game for a very long time, because they know their friends are there and they're going to get to hang out with these friends that they love.
I think the issue is, and probably one of the biggest downfalls of home not being incredibly successful, how many people actually want to have those intimate experiences and friendships and engaging conversations with people? Now, we do, obviously. I mean, it's a part of gaming I haven't really gotten to experience too much. I think in general, though, especially for games like Call of Duty or Titanfall or something like that, most people just don't care. And so, is it worth taking the time and the money and the manpower to make these sort of lobbies? Maybe depending on the type of game, but overall, it's kind of hard to say, I guess. I think the biggest thing really.
I had a guy on PlayStation Home. This was at the time where I didn't care for it all that much, but I met a circle of friends, and we went to his virtual house, and we just hung out, and the guy got pissed drunk at some point, while everybody was hanging out. He just got pissed drunk, and he just had his mic on, and he had the radio on, and he just started singing. And while he was singing, he was slurring, and we all just couldn't stop laughing. And then at one point, we were just like, "Yo, let's just all drink and join this guy." And then we all "Well, sorry, we'll be right back." And I even had to leave the house to pick a beer. I was like, "I'm just gonna go to the store. I'll be back in 20 minutes." I went to the store. I picked up a 6-pack of beer. Then next thing we know, we're all singing this stupid song on his radio. Whatever. That is something that we get at home. Not PlayStation.
See, but you have to educate.
We hang out at a friend's house. It's dude, you're hysterical. Let's just be at your level. Let's all drink. If Call of Duty started a session like that, and then all of a sudden, you're waiting for a session, and everybody just wants to get started, presses X, but one guy doesn't press X, and he just starts singing the theme song, all drunk and slurry, and everybody just starts laughing. You're all having a good time without playing the game.
No, he's getting booted. He's getting booted from the session.
Possibly,
he's gone.
But that guy's going to get messages later on and be like, "That's hysterical."
The hardest part, though, is educating the gamer and making them understand why they do want those experiences, and a lot of it comes down to them having it in the first place, because for the majority of people, were I in your position, I'd have been running down to the store to grab a 6-pack and sit there and sing with them. It would have been a blast. Yeah. And from then on, because I was educated about it, from then on I would be much more open to it and would seek it out.
Yeah. I'd still rather be playing Uncharted.
I think it's really an attitude thing, and it might even be a little bit generational too, because my brothers, they're just a couple years younger than me, but they got a whole different online multiplayer experience. Like you were talking about, there are some people that get those quality relationships and stuff, and I feel like they did, because they played Halo online since the beginning, and they actually made real friends and then built this huge community out of it. Yeah, and cool. Their community got to the size where it was mentioned on Bungie's main page.
Oh wow!
It was and they're still keep in touch with those people. They still have an ongoing community, and they really just maintain those friendships. And they just met those people from just playing on Halo. But it was just kind of having that willingness to kind of pursue those people, because most people are so passive. I think just in general, especially these days, that it's a lot harder. Not to segue, but.
Oh, no.
I think that technology in general kind of takes some of the depth out of social interactions. So.
Yeah, Grand Theft Auto 5, I don't know if you guys seen a highlight on Kotaku of a whole bunch of people on a rooftop doing a demolition derby. It's one of these really tall towers in one of the buildings in Grand Theft Auto 5 in San Andreas, and all the cars are just in a circle at the edge of this building, and they just have a demolition derby right there, and they're just all trying to knock each other off the building. And that was
nice.
That was Club of Champions. That was one of the clubs that I was part of in PlayStation Home. That was part of that circle of friends. So when I saw them on Kotaku, I was like, "Oh, that's so awesome!" It has the potential to create these friendships, but I feel like ultimately the way it's set up, I think now that they're starting to move towards co-op, I think that's way better, because now you have to work together.
So true.
Yeah. And it's a smaller co-ops, right? Last of Us has, I think, 4 also. Division looks like it's going to be 4 people co-op. Assassin's Creed Unity, barring all the controversy that's going on.
Is it going to have 4-player co-op?
4-player co-op. I think when it's those small groups, I think that kind of works, because now you're looking for it's just a few people.
Yeah, Borderlands 2.
Yeah. Borderlands actually.
Except on Vita.
Yeah, you know what? Borderlands, definitely, because I didn't know that on Borderlands you can arm or disarm the whole online thing, and I just started playing the game, and all of a sudden, people just came in, and I was like, okay. And it actually worked out.
That never happened to me. Weird. No one wanted to come play with old Fox TJN.
We're going over we're going over again. So let's ask the question. Around the table. Do you feel that multiplayer online games make gamers more or less social?
Well,
I guess versus couch multiplayer.
Yeah.
Let's add that.
I'm sort of biased through nostalgia, and from the discussions we've had, I think you could probably tell which way I lean for what I prefer to do. It makes sense in video games nowadays. It's about money. The people want to sell their video games. So why would they include local multiplayer to where your buddy can come over and play it when they could get your buddy to buy his own copy, and then therefore they've sold two? So I understand that, and I don't really think there's a way around that. But to specifically answer the question, there are too many interactions and fun little nuances to sitting around with some friends in the same room and having a blast playing one game. And not to say you can't get a similar or better experience out of, certain situations playing online, but they're just fewer and far between.
Cool.
Well, I'm going to throw the quality wrench in there again, and I think that really sitting couch multiplayer really gives more quality interactions because you really have to invest more into it. You invest the time of setting up the social event, and then everyone sitting down and really putting a face to each character. So I think that it's at least more quality social, but probably more social in general too.
I just want to say I love you guys.
He's about to be a naysayer.
But I think that the potential for social interaction is higher because of online gaming. And while warm fuzzies, but I literally talk to 9 out of 10 of the people that I used to play online or couch gaming with about the same amount as the people I play online gaming with, to be perfectly honest, from back in the day. So, but and again, just because we haven't really experienced it doesn't mean it's absolutely not being it's not out there. So I think it's made.
This is a question that's hard
social.
not to be biased on too. But struggling with that.
It is because it's based on your own personal experience. We can't speak for others, right?
Yeah, exactly. But so that's why I just want to say I love you guys. Love you guys so much.
Well, I think you made excellent points, and that kind of changed my position on it. Mm-hmm. I feel that there is potential. Yeah. And so there's hope. I feel that there is potential for.
Hey, well, this is episode 4, right? Episode 4, New Hope. Yeah.
All
right.
Oh, nice. But I think there is potential there. I do think it still needs work. Yeah. I think there was last generation, because it was new. I think the focus was on it being competitive. Yeah. And I think maybe that was the issue. And I'm kind of hoping that with these smaller co-op structures, that maybe friendships will develop a little bit more.
Yeah.
I do kind of hope, that we'll see something similar to PlayStation Home come to next-gen consoles, because I do think that that's important. I think they dropped the ball on that. I think they, if they marketed it properly and told everybody that it was a tool and not a game, and how it should be used, I think that people would be more into it, and maybe the competitive side would have shined a lot better, because then it would actually mean something if somebody you know really well just shot you in the head from across the board. But I think there's definitely potential. I still think it needs work, but for right now, couch multiplayer stands as the champion of interaction and social gaming, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I know I already went. I'm going again.
Yeah, okay. I'll go get a 6-pack.
Yeah, let's do it. Brian does make some good points, and it really comes back to really educating people, or at least them getting the experience and then understanding what can come from it and why it's worth having, as opposed to, everybody sat around and played games on their couches with their buddies. But it's really hard to find a really unique, engaging, overall fun experience that you can have online with perfect strangers, and maybe start developing those relationships. But yeah, I guess I didn't have too much of a point. So never mind.
Yeah. Perfect strangers. Balky. Represent. So should we throw it to the comments then?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, guys,
what do you think?
The conversation does not end with our video. As always, we look forward to your comments.
And we're going to keep arguing about this.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
The moment this camera goes off, we're going to argue about it. But
oh, yeah. You son of a...
No, I love you guys. I love you guys.
I'm gonna punch you in the face.
what a loving round table that's
Yes!
turned out to be.
It's a lovin', man.
But yeah, definitely join in the discussion. Leave the comments. We'll definitely respond to any comments we see. Yeah, and we hope you enjoyed this roundtable, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye.